Welcome, my name is Jean Carroll, and I am here today to show you how to make a very simple yet very beautiful macrame plant hanger. We have everything together in the kit that you'll pick up today at the library, and we do have plant clippings for you. Those are optional. Perhaps you have a plant at home you would like to clip and use, but feel free to pick up a plant that will be next to the kit. So let's get started, and we're going to have a great time today. Let's get started, shall we? In the kit that you brought home from the library, you will have a bowl, a string of ribbons, sorry, not ribbon, it's yarn, with a loop at the top, and a bag of beads for the bottom of your bowl. When you come to pick up your kit, my coworker Kathy is very into plants, and she went around the library and clipped individual clippings of our library plants. And we will have these baby jars with a little bit of water and a clipping for you to take home. It will not be in your kit bag because it needs some light, but they'll be next to the bag, so if you would like one, pick one up in addition to your bag. You have different options at home. If you want to use dirt, and perhaps you have plants at home and you want to use your own clipping, that's fine too. This is just an option. And that's what you'll get from us at the library. So at home, you'll need a little bit of water, and a ruler if you have one. Is not necessary to the project, but you can either eyeball what we're doing or use a ruler, whatever you're most comfortable with. So when you pick up your jar, you can just dump out the water until you get home and just put it back after you do the craft. Okay, so this is all the materials that we have, and I'm going to get started with showing you the knots. Okay, so let's get started with the knots. One thing I want to point out is that we have provided you with yarn. This is not macrame rope. So if you are going to make another one in the future, and perhaps you want to use a larger pot with soil that might be heavier, I would recommend using macrame rope. You can find them at Michael's or Joann or any type of hobby store. But this is yarn, and it's going to be just fine for the bowl that we've provided you. And again, our plant will be one that lives in water, which I think is very cool. But you do have options, but I just wanted to point that out to you. So you'll see that you have a metal hoop, and we have started the first knot for you. I have my ring at the top away from me, and I have divided the yarn into 3 sets of 6. I'm going to start with my first knot. I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm really just showing this to you. It's not mandatory, just so you can kind of eyeball it if you want. I'm going to go about 6 inches down from my first knot. And I take this group of strands, and it's a basic tie around knot. There's nothing fancy. I just have to make sure I grab all of the pieces and pull them. It doesn't have to be exact. And I'm not going to pull it too tightly. I will at the end, in case I need to adjust some of my knots. You'll want to keep them relatively even. We're going to do another set of knots here and then here. So I grab my middle grouping of yarn, and it's just a basic tie around. I'm going to pull all the pieces through. I'm going to fiddle with the placement of the knot until I get it where I want it. And again, I'm keeping them a bit loose for now. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with the last group. You just have to get your fingers through that hole, grab all of the yarn, and see, I didn't do that correctly. I'm going to start over. You can always untie a knot if you get stuck like I just did. That's why I like to keep it a little bit loose until the very end when I have everything where I want it. Okay, so I'm going to take my last grouping again. Make a big hoop enough to pull all the pieces through. I'm going to fiddle with it until I get the knot up in place, about even with my other two knots. Okay, so I have my first 3 knots done. Now I'm going to further divide my strands. We did our first grouping of 6. Now I'm going to divide the 6 further into 3 groups of 3. There's my one set. I'm going to pull 1, 2, 3, and then same thing on the end here, 3 pieces and 3 pieces. Okay, and again my ring is at the top and I just even it out so they're about even. After my first set of knots, I'm going to group these together. So I'm grouping these 2 and then I'll group these 2, and at the very end I'll join my end pieces. So after this knot I want to go down about 4 inches from this knot here. So about 4 inches is about right here. Again, it doesn't have to be exact and you can eyeball it if you're good with measurements. And I'm going to group these 2 strands together. You just do a little fiddling. Don't make it too tight in case you want to make adjustments. So now I have these 2 knots grouped here, and now I'm going to group these 2 here, again 4 inches down, even with this. Just like so. And I'm just loosely making my knot. And now my 2 end pieces, I'm joining these together as well. All right, so I have 2 sets of knots now. We're almost done. And I think they're pretty even, so I'm going to tighten them a bit. Okay, now for our very last knot. It's only going to be about an inch or 2 from the last set of knots, and we're going to join all of them together. This will be the base where your vase sits inside. So I need to grab all of those pieces through my hoop And I'm doing it very lightly so I can adjust my knot to where I want it to be. Push it up a little bit and tighten. Okay, so we have our hanging, our yarn, and you have a vase. I'm going to add my beads to the vase. And again, this is optional. This is not mandatory. You can add some water to your vase so it goes over the rocks. You can take your clipping. There's no exact science to this. You just want to make sure that the roots are inside the water. And it will grow. So I would recommend, if you're at home and you have the place where you want to hang your hanging, that you hang it so that you have two hands free to get the vase inside. So it's a little bit easier if you have the two hands free. Again, the vase is going to, the base of the vase will sit on this bottom knot. So I'm going to separate. Just a little tricky because I don't want to spill the water, but don't want to kill my plant either. And this is it. So you'll have your knots at the top and knots on the side and your bottom knot here. And this is your finished product. Hi y'all, it's Jean again. I wanted to point out something as I created another craft and wrote out the instructions. Some of the yarn that we have provided in the kits have different levels of stretchiness. And so based on your final hanger, your knots may be in different places. So I wanted to show you a final product of where the knots should be in case when you're done, if your bowl feels like it's flopping out of your yarn. This is where your knots should fall roughly to keep the bowl really in place. You can see my first set of knots is near the rim here. If it's right at the rim or below, that's where you want your first set of knots. And then the second set of knots, I said was about 4 inches from your first set, which in some cases it will be. But if you find that your knots are not where they should be, you can unknot them and reknot them a little bit closer together. So this is what it will look like. I hope you enjoyed this craft. I know I did. I learned something new. I'm not a plant person myself, but this will grow in the water. You can leave it as is and it will grow over the side of the bowl. And if you would like to share your finished product on our social media, we'd love to see it. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or our YouTube channel. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.